Hey there, this is the Small Fish, Big Pod, the entrepreneurship podcast for the gallus few who dream and do. If you're a small biz owner, a creative freelancer, or someone dreaming of leaving your 9 to 5, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Rhiannon Louden, proud female founder, mum, and small biz champion. I was born and bred in Winnipeg, Canada, and currently live over in Glasgow, Scotland, where I run 2 small businesses, Rhiannon Neal Photography and Small Fish Brand Co. I started Small Fish Big Pod as a way of connecting the small business community, providing a platform where we can share open and honest stories, ideas, advice, and tips about running a small business. And now on to this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome to part 2 of my self-employed mum mini-series. This week you don't have to listen to me drone on my own. You get to have another voice and another perspective, which I'm really excited to share with you. And today I am joined by Susan of Sunshine Media. Susan is a long-term small business owner. She's been running different small businesses since she was 19 years old, and she is also a mum of 3. So she has some great perspective and some great tips and ideas and advice on how to juggle entrepreneurship and motherhood and all of the challenges that come with it. We talk about finding boundaries between work and home and why that is more difficult when you're self-employed. We share some lessons learned after years in business, talk about how the pandemic has really been a test on all of us, and we move into why being open and honest is so important from a sort of social media online perspective, and the whole sort of mum influencers reality versus Instagram thing as well. If you've been following me for a little while now, you will know that I am pregnant with baby number 2. At the time of recording this episode, I am about 2 weeks away from my due date, so getting close and just trying to wrap up all the loose ends and prepare myself as best I can for taking a little bit of a break from my business, which is no easy feat. If you missed last week's episode, part 1 in the series, that was all about pregnancy and motherhood. That was a solo episode, so you are stuck listening just to my voice for that one. But I did talk a lot about the sort of challenges that I was finding with being pregnant the second time, and with trying my best to plan for a maternity leave, along with some tips and some things that I have learned the hard way along the way, I guess. If you did listen in, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you are joining us for the first time today, thanks so much for listening in. I hope that if you are a mum or a mum-to-be and somebody who is also juggling a business or trying to build a business or thinking about starting a business, that this gives you lots of advice and tips, as well as some honest perspective on what it's really like. So without further ado, here we go for my chat with Susan. Hi, Susan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good today.
Good. So can you tell us a little bit first about your business, what it is that you do?
Okay, so I run Sunshine Media with my business partner, and we help businesses to get more out of their social media. So whether that's that you need some training and support, whether you actually want your social media managed, whether you just need a wee bit of content creation done, then we help with that. So we work with everything from, really small one-man bands to doing training for groups and organizations. So yeah, it keeps us busy.
That's great. And that's something that so many people, I think, are looking for help with right now, obviously with social media being so important. But I think also the sort of pandemic and all the lockdown and stuff has made people realize just how many hats we're expected to wear as small business owners. And I know from my own clients, more and more people are kind of looking for help in that area. So that's good. That's good to know someone with that specialty.
It came from having my own businesses from when I was 19 and spending so many years trying to get social media right, studying it, doing courses. And then again, I think everybody in business has this line when COVID hit. Cue cough from the wee one here. When COVID hit, we had an events company at the time, and we did all the social media marketing and things for that. And 2 years worth of bookings were, gone overnight. So we were like, right, what are we going to do here? And for ages, we had wanted to help other business owners, sort of teach them what we had learned over all the years. So yeah, we put that into place last October. So yeah, Sunshine Media is nearly one.
Oh, that's so exciting. I didn't realize that you were kind of only, that new in business. That, well, you've ran
Well,
businesses for
yeah, new
years
to
and
this
years, but
business. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's
So
great.
been
Good
an
timing.
adventure. Yeah.
Oh, do you know what? It's interesting because that's kind of how Small Fish was born as well. I came from a marketing and communications background. That's what I studied at uni. And then I kind of focused more on the photography side of things for years. And similar to yourself, running my own business showed me how challenging it is when you don't really know anything about running a business and you're trying to learn everything from scratch. So
Yeah,
then it was a
definitely.
matter of, how do we combine these skill sets and this experience into a way to help other people? And that's how it was born. So it's
Yeah.
funny how, your own experience, both as a business owner and then I guess professionally, can help you create something entirely new.
I know it is, and I think so many people have just done this pivot because of the pandemic. Like, we were at a networking event 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and every single person, when they were introducing themselves, introducing their business, they all had that phrase when COVID happened, when the pandemic hit, and everyone had done something or changed their business in some way or taken a new look at the way they worked. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, for businesses been a game changer, some good, some bad, some just different. But yeah.
Yeah, that whole adapting and pivoting. And I know those words got so overused, but it's true. It's so many of us had to do it. And is it mostly women that you work with, or is it quite a mix?
Um, it tends to be. I think our branding is fairly feminine, and it probably we're honest. We talk a lot about being mums. We talk a lot about being women in business, so that probably attracts that, as attracts similar clients. But we have worked with a few men, and they're not certainly not excluded in any way. It's just not who seems to naturally come towards the business.
Mine's very much the same. I do have a few male clients and have over, the past couple of years, but I think when you do talk openly and honestly about the challenges of running a business as a woman, as a mom, you do tend to just, those people gravitate more towards you because you're
I think
relatable and they
so.
know that
And
you're
yeah,
kind
they
of.
feel they can identify, and it is things like people will say, "Oh, and can I book a call? But I'm going to have my wee one. Is that okay?" And that's not a problem for me. That I quite like to see people's kids coming in and things. So, it's maybe more comfortable for people to speak to somebody who's been in the same situation and knows kind of the challenges. But yeah.
Definitely. And I can see your little one there on your lap
Yeah.
as we have this conversation, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So on that note, can you tell us a little bit, I guess, about how many children you have and sort of how it's been being self-employed with children at home?
Yeah, so I've got 3 kids. I've got 2 boys. They are 8 and 5, and then I've got my wee girl Beth, who's 17 months. So she was born last April, right at the peak, well, the peak of the first bit of the pandemic, which was an adventure. But actually, in a way, because we had lost all those bookings, it gave me time just to have her rather than when I had the other two. I was juggling a business and a baby and babies. Yes, I hear you. So yeah, so in a way it was actually nice because it was the first time I'd actually had proper time off after having a baby. It's just a shame we couldn't do anything. Time off in the house, but there was definitely a nice element to that. So in terms of being self-employed and having kids, it's a juggle. It really is, and I think it's the mental load, because the mental load of a business owner is huge. All the different hats you've got to wear, and the mental load of being a mum is huge. So when you combine the two things, so you're thinking, have I replied to that email? Have I sent that invoice? All the jobs that come with being a business owner, and then you're like, have I sent that letter back to school? Have I booked the doctor's appointment? So it's busy, but I wouldn't change it because it does mean I'm in control. And yes, I probably work a lot of hours, but I can be the mum that picks them up from school. I can go to the school concerts, and that's not the same for everyone in business. Sometimes, people aren't able to do that. But for me personally, I've always been able to work my business around my kids, which, is the main reason for being self-employed in a way. I'm not answering to anyone else. So yeah, I wouldn't change it. I love it, but it definitely has me curling up in a corner at points as well. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's obviously pros and cons to it, because I have a few friends who work very traditional sort of 9 to 5 jobs. And as you say, it's kind of like, well, they've got to arrange before and after care for school. And they have, they basically have no flexibility. They're just expected to kind of be available for these hours. Whereas for myself and a lot of other people who are self-employed, you can kind of dictate it. So if I work a shorter day, right now, my daughter's not old enough to be in school. She's only 4. But when she starts school, I'll be able to finish my work day at 2:30, 3 o'clock to go pick her up. But then it does mean that I'm going to be back at the computer in the evenings to make up those hours.
So the flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So the flexibility is great, but it also means that you have those added challenges. And, my friends who do kind of work those 9 to 5 jobs have said, oh, I would hate having to go, sign back onto the laptop at night. Whereas I'm kind of like, well, it's a trade-off, because then I get those hours with her. So it's bit of a minefield trying to navigate all this.
Definitely. And I think it can be hard to keep the boundaries between work and home separate when you're self-employed, because you don't have that sort of walk out the office or shut the computer off and that's you. You've still got that the thoughts in your head all the time about what should I be doing. And I do try now, like when I'm with the kids, to be focused on them, put my phone down, give them my time. But I think that is easier in some ways when you have a job that you just walk out the door from and you're done.
I totally agree.
Again now. Or more snacks for this one.
That's all right. That's what we need to do. Keep them busy.
I know.
I do think
so many biscuits.
Hey, it's whatever works, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. There's the low sugar ones. I count that as a win.
Oh, no judgment from me, trust me. But I think you're absolutely right. I think that's one of the things that I find the most challenging. And it's not just working from home, because I realize, most people are kind of working from home at least part of the time now. But I think when you run a business, it's really hard to turn it off. It's not as though you go, okay, it's 5 o'clock or 5:30 or whatever, I'm off the clock. But when it's your business, you're always thinking about the things that you have to do the next day. If you don't get this stuff done, it's not getting done because it's your business. Yeah, it's just a very different dynamic, and it's really, really hard to turn that off.
Yeah, I think so. And it's taken me all these years now to get that ability to turn it off a little bit. And it's just come through experience, really. When I first started having businesses, can we be quiet, please? I thought that, if I didn't answer an email within 20 seconds, that was a disaster. Whereas now I'm like, you know what, that email can wait for 2 hours. That'll be okay. The person's still on the other end. And I tend to, as I say, I work with a lot of other mums, a lot of other women in business that have got lots of responsibilities. So they tend to be quite, understanding if you say, can we move that half an hour or whatever. I mean, it's rare that happens, but recently with kids being ill and having to isolate, go for various PCR tests and all sorts, that has been a challenge as well. Like, and working through the pandemic with kids at home was certainly a test on my mental resources, I would say. But hey, you come out of these things stronger, don't you? And you learn things from it. At the time, it seems like the worst situation in the world, and then it passes and you think, wow, I did that. I survived that. I've still got a business. I've still got 3 happy kids. Like, we're okay. So, you live and learn.
I think you're right. And I think the fact, you kind of mentioned there that most of the women that you work with are maybe in a similar situation or can relate. And I think that's why it's so important to be open and honest about this stuff. So just say, like, I've got, for me right now, I've only got the one, with the second one on the way. For you, you've got 3 to kind of work around. So talking about that sometimes, in the challenges that you face, even if it doesn't directly relate to what it is that you do, but it relates to running a business, it makes you that much more